Welcome back to our discussion of 14 defining characteristics of fascism. Yesterday we talked about number 12, obsession with crime and punishment, and today we'll be discussing number 13, rampant cronyism and corruption. Fascist regimes almost always are governed by groups of friends and associates who appoint each other to government positions and use governmental power and authority to protect their friends from accountability. It's not uncommon in fascist regimes for national resources and even treasures to be appropriated or even outright stolen by government leaders. So nepotism.
Yep,
is that happening in the... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that is totally happening. And in fact, it was happening during Obama's administration. And that was a thing that the right used to ride back to power, with the Tea Party movement, was this whole thing of crony capitalism. Obama has crony capitalism. And when you looked, he did. So they got behind this guy, Trump. And that was, their idea was that they were going to go back to actual free market capitalism. And, they're so wrong that when when I try to explain this to people, Trump's crony capitalism, there's so much there to unpack that I don't even know where to start usually.
Yeah.
Like we had it during the Bush era, obviously, with all the defense contractors, the no-bid contracts for Halliburton, which Dick Cheney, had been a part of running that company before he became the vice president. We went to Obama, and Obama had kind of a different kind of crony capitalism. I don't think it was as much as the Bush administration, but now, and it's funny because that was like a big thing that sucked in a lot of people who support Trump today, is this idea of no more crony capitalism. And Gal, you're a professor. You've looked at this. Maybe you know where to start unpacking this, because Jesus Christ, there's just so much of it now.
It's something that has happened for decades, but to the extreme that it is right now is unprecedented, and how blatant it is. Let's put it that way. When you have your daughter in the White House, when Secret Service goes broke because they can't protect your kids who are quote unquote part of the administration, that is exactly what wasn't supposed to happen with anybody, according to the founding fathers. But then, you've got, when you let Betsy DeVos, your friend, be the Secretary of Education, even though it's the worst thing possible, or Rex Tillerson. We've talked about the corruption within corporations and the connections, and it's just going to come right back to this as well, because, Trump was pretty open that he was going to protect the rich. And even though, for some reason, such a large percentage of people, or even 30% of people, didn't see that he was open with that, it was blatant. He didn't, he said that he was going to cut taxes for the rich. It's not surprising, but it's unprecedented in ways that I can't even begin to really detail in a short episode. It's just the leaning towards a kleptocracy of making sure that our resources are going to his family. Secret Service are bankrupt, as I said, and where's that money going? His pocket, his business. I think we discussed that in one previous. That's where that money's going, into his business, into his pocket, his family's pocket. That's our taxpayers' dollars. And you're right. Where is the loud group that was talking about draining the swamp when the swamp wasn't drained? The swamp was just even worse, added more crocodiles to that swamp.
Yeah. The swamp was drained. It was just, they replaced the sewage with radioactive waste.
Yeah, that's a good way.
Yeah, he swore he wasn't going to let his daughter and family in the White House. Next thing you know, as soon as he's elected, the first thing that happens is nepotism. And you guys are right. It's been this way for as long as I can remember, with these corporations coming into government, and just total disregard for anything good for the people. It's all about what's good for them. And it's all about getting a bigger payday for each one of these people, and it's ridiculous.
And I think the thing that we're seeing that is so disturbing here is this. There's a good-sized segment of the country that just refuses to believe crony capitalism is happening. You know, I actually know somebody who owns Energy Transfer's stock, and I'm not going to take the time to explain it here, but he explained it to me, and if you go online and do some Googling, you will find out that, yes, Trump sold his Energy Transfers, his interest in Energy Transfers, but he sold it the same way a felon sells his guns to a family member. You know, when a felon's not allowed to have guns anymore, he sells it to a family member, you know, that kind of thing. But you cannot tell people this. I mean, it's so easy to go and look it up. And that, to me, even more than the crony capitalism, because we've had crony capitalism along the way, but what's going on here is such a segment that is supporting this regime that has more crony capitalism than we've seen, certainly in my lifetime, and just absolutely will not accept that it's there.
Because it's in their face right now, and they still don't see it. I mean, with Obama and even with Bush, they hid it a little bit. I mean, Bush, it was hard to hide with Cheney right there, but at the same time, people could look past it easier because Bush was a simpleton and Obama was a really slick liar. You know what I mean? He could smile and make everybody love him while he's doing really crooked shit. Trump doesn't even care. He's to the point like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, so what? Yep. That's the difference here. It's blatant, it's in your face, and the people who choose not to see it, I don't know how they can justify that. It blows my mind, but somehow they are able to turn off any kind of logic or common sense when it comes to Trump. And it might just be as simple as they're totally racist and they just couldn't stand a black president, so anything's better than that, which is what I think a lot of it is, which is sickening because, you know, hate a president for his policies and his crimes, not because of the color of his skin.
Well, that's really what it is, you know, and it's funny on these discussions we keep coming back to the various ways racism is manifesting, but this is a fact, you know. If you want to talk about like a liberal and, you know, like somebody who did all kinds of shit that conservatives just hate, you look at Jimmy Carter, you know, and then you look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama was a neoconservative Republican compared to Jimmy Carter. Did Jimmy Carter get all this hate? Did people show up with nooses to protest him and stuff? No. So something else is going on besides policy. And when people are like, well, I just hate Obama's policies, I'm not buying it because the right did not freak out over Carter this
yes,
bad.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Not like this.
Not in the same way. It wasn't with all the racist overtones or whatever. And they weren't hanging nooses, but they genuinely hated Carter.
Well, yeah, they generally hated Carter, but there's just a certain level of hysteria when it comes to Barack Obama, you know, that I just, you know, wasn't there with Carter. Like it's just absolute crazy hysteria, and the articles these people are passing around between themselves. Like I look at some of them and I laugh after I get over the horror of the fact that people are like spreading this around and believing it.
I mean, you don't even have to go back as far back as Carter. If you remember, and I was pretty young during this time period, but the one thing I remember from the original Clinton campaign in 92, was the right's attack on him for being a draft dodger from Vietnam. Do you remember that?
Oh, irony.
Thank you. Like, that was, and believe me, I understand there's plenty of reasons not to like Bill Clinton, but that was their biggest attack. And at least that's the one that sticks in my mind. I was raised in a military family. That probably has a lot to do why that sticks in my mind. I was a kid. I couldn't vote yet or anything. But I remember just the outrage of people that, how dare a draft dodger run for president of the United States? And now we have a 5-time draft dodger in the presidency. And the right are who voted for them, who absolutely disrespects all the soldiers, all the veterans. We see this every day, but even 20 years ago, this would have never made it.
You want to know what blows my mind more than anything? It's the fact that back then everyone said, oh, not everyone, but a lot of people were like, Clinton is immoral. He's a womanizer. We cannot have that in the White House. And now they use the same thing. Hillary Clinton's husband was a womanizer. He's immoral. We could never have anyone like her in the White House. But look, what the hell?
Yeah, you have a man who has been sued for raping a 12-year-old girl that nobody ever wants to talk about that case. And nothing. It doesn't
Trump
even
brags about being a womanizer.
Yes.
He just puts it out there. But yeah, I mean that's that whole hypocrisy of the left and the right. This is not okay. Oh wait, my candidate, my president did it. Okay, well it's not that bad. And it's just that's fucked up. But going back to the crony capitalism and what's going on there. Take a look at Jared Kushner, people. Just go and research Jared Kushner, especially you people who talk about George Soros and the Hillary cartel. Take a look at Jared Kushner. And while you're at it, take a look at George Soros and see where the bridge connects. I mean...
I tell them every day I'm telling somebody, the Soros that you say funds Antifa and protesters in the streets here is the same guy who actually in real life, in the real world, not in make-believe land, funds Republicans and Democrats. That should tell you a whole hell of a lot right there, how different those two parties are if the same guy's willing to fund them both.
Oh yeah, I guarantee everybody who goes hysterical about the George Soros thing, which I'm not saying there's not something there about George Soros trying to influence things and fuck up our economy, but everybody who goes hysterical about George Soros has at some point willfully and enthusiastically voted for a George Soros-backed candidate. Guarantee it.
I just want to know where my paychecks are. I got 3 years they need to catch up on.
Yeah, I got about 15.
I know, right?
Right. God, I'm not going to lie. I've only got 3 years that Soros started funding me. Right around Ferguson.
Yeah, I've been doing this a long time, and he's never gave me a check, and he's never given anybody I know a check.
Right, where the hell's my money?
But I would suspect that if, and I'm saying it's a very big if there's any truth to these people's assertions that George Soros pays protesters, it would be people like the Democrats and Republicans during an election season where when you go to a protest, they're handing you signs, and you're like, I'm not taking your stupid-ass Democrat sign. Why I don't support these people? I'm an anarchist. Get the fuck out of here. But stuff like that. There were
40,000 protesters on the street Saturday in Boston. That's a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, that's just it's a huge myth to distract. He's the boogeyman, the alt-right Nazi scum that love Trump so much need to lie about and say when Trump actually gets caught, I shouldn't say Trump himself, but where Trump supporters actually get caught putting ads on Craigslist. I saw 3 on Sunday for trying to get people to come to come to the rally in Phoenix on Tuesday night.
Well, yeah. In all fairness, I've seen those same want ads for people to protest against Trump and stuff, and I think all those ads are just somebody trying to throw up a false thing.
I don't know. Trump admitted to paying for the inauguration.
Not everybody. That wouldn't surprise me.
But you're right. It doesn't surprise. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was one side trying to show the other side off, or anything along those lines. All I know is I've never met anybody who's been paid to protest. I know people who need some money, though.
He lobbies and donates to political parties through his different organizations is what happens. These people are total liars. I don't care who it is. If it's a Democrat or Republican, saying he's paying anybody in these streets, that's bullshit. The fact is, he's donating big money to both political parties because either one that wins is still going to be on his side. Everything Trump has done, with the exception of his family being in office, is pretty much what Clinton would have done. The same people would have been in there.
I'm not going to go on that. I've got too much proof to the otherwise that false equivalency won't go with me, because
really?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't think she'd have big oil executives up in there?
I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying that everything that has been done would not have been done. I don't think we would have seen the ban on transgender. I don't think we would have seen.
No, I'm talking about the cabinet appointments and all that stuff. These same people would have been in there.
I don't think it'd be the same people, but you're right in saying that they would be,
the same kind of people.
The same kind of people. Yes. Okay, I can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
you wouldn't have Rex Tillerson, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't have another, somebody from another oil company.
I just figured out why these people who believe this thing about Soros paying protesters. I just figured out why they believe it so much. Because they can't do basic fucking math. If George Soros is paying protesters $80,000 a year or something, millions of people have protested since Ferguson, right? Millions of people. Now, millions of people times $80,000. I'm sorry, he's rich, but he's not that rich.
Nope, he's not even on the top 10 list, guys, I can tell you. Go look at Forbes. It gives you the list.
Yeah. So some simple math would debunk that whole thing, but of course, we're dealing with people who think that education is evil.
Right. The whole point is they can't believe that regular, everyday people would be against something they're not. So they must have some other motive.
And you just got to wonder about people who think that it takes money to make somebody outraged about Nazis marching in the street.
Right.
It takes money you have to pay somebody money for them to be horrified by a cop shooting somebody in the back, an unarmed person in the back.
Right.
Right. I mean, are you fucking serious?
Well, I'm going to tell you this right now, and this is a fact. You can't dispute this fact. During the Bush administration, during the Obama administration, Nazis marched in the streets. KKK marched in the streets. I was there counter-protesting them. There were 3,000 or 4,000 people opposing 20 or 30 or 50 of them every freaking time. This is nothing new. When they come out, we come out. It's how it works.
You're absolutely right. We had, we've had different KKK rallies in downtown St. Louis. We've had different. I've not seen a Nazi rally, but I have seen KKK rallies in St. Louis, and there have always been counter protests.
Yeah, the Nazis are called NSM. That's their big organization. That's who comes out here.
So yeah, we kind of got off the topic.
We kind of did, but that's okay.
It's all kind of related. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about crony capitalism and it has a lot to do with money funding these political campaigns and who's funding them. But the really scary thing is, right now we're 13 for 13. Every single one of these has applied to the United States so far.
Yeah, it really has. And I'm going to go back to what I said. I wish it wasn't so difficult to unpack with right now the crony capitalism, but it's just there's so much of it. It's like, where the fuck do you even begin? And, for fuck's sake, if somebody can't see that, there's no point in trying to convince them at this point.
Yeah, they can see it. It's just if they want to see it, if they want to be intellectually honest or not. That's what I think.
It's just basic cognitive dissonance. They're not gonna.
Yeah.
If they haven't seen it by now, that's the 6 out of 10 Trump supporters that have said there's never, ever, ever anything that he can do to make them stop supporting them. That's them.
Yeah, and every politician has these kind of supporters.
Absolutely.
There's still people saying Hillary and Obama.
It's just not usually Nazis. At least openly. At least not openly, I'll say.
Yeah, not a bunch of very good people on the Nazi side supporting you. So yeah, anyone have anything else to add?
Not on this one.
Nope.
No? All right, so we're going to go ahead and end this one. We want to thank everybody for listening, and tomorrow will be the last episode, which is all about fraudulent elections and if those are relevant or not to the United States and what's going on here right now. So see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.